Hello, this is a Grotrian Steinweg 130 upright piano made in 1926, and we're assessing it with a view to restoring it for a client. This is an 85-note piano, as a lot of Grotrian Steinwegs are, and pianos of that period to German manufacturers. There's a missing key top there, as we can see, and there's one that's chipped here. That can almost be invisibly repaired, I think, but there's also one here that's been replaced and with not a very good match, so I think we can probably hopefully do better than that. And otherwise there's a few that have come off and been stuck back on. There's a bit ridgy, so we can try and improve those too, but certainly we can rescue this keyboard. There's one here, another chip, and again, it won't look perfect, but a pretty good match hopefully. And we can see the double music desk, which is wonderful. We've spoken about that many times before. I won't talk too much about things we've already mentioned, which you can see about on other videos about Grotrians, but really such a superb manufacturer, and 1926 is a wonderful year for them. So mechanically, I'm just going to have a quick look at the pedals, which we can see the amount of wear it's had. So reasonable amount, but not a huge amount. It's not going to be beyond restoration, and we'll see what we need to change inside. Before that, it's a clear candidate for repolishing. You would have no question repolishing a Grotrian. We do them on stock pianos, regularly repolishing stock Grotrians. We'd look at the top of the piano here, and it's got marks on the top, so they need, obviously, if we repolish it, they will disappear. You may just about be able to detect that that was there before, but more or less disappear. We'll just look at I spoke to my polisher, and he thinks it'll come out like one of the ones we just finished, so we'll look at that and get some idea of the colour. This is a Steinway upright in the polishing room. If it looks a bit flickery, it's actually the dust in the atmosphere. We wonder what on earth that was, but we're actually stripping down this piano here, and this is a Gauss and Kalman piano that's just being started and creating dust, which is showing up on the video. But you can see the colour of the piano here, and you can see that it's quite a light colour. If we look at the original colour on this one, as we always leave the underside of the lid, the original colour, you can see it's not that dissimilar to the other piano. So I think this is probably slightly lighter, but so the casework may not come up quite as light as this. You can choose to have it darker as well if you prefer. It's obviously a personal choice, that. But the whole piano, as you can see, we bring out the best in the grain that we can, and this colour brings out the best in the grain, so that's why we do go for a lighter colour. So going back to the Grotrian Steinweg, there is a choice. If you look at the lightest colour here, it can go to that kind of colour. Obviously not the whole piano, but it will show grain, and the main thing is to show as much grain as you can. That's grain contrast is what we like to do. There's the underside of the lid here. It's quite reddish, so maybe the piano will be slightly redder, but if our polisher feels that it'll go to that colour of that Steinway, then that probably what will happen. See the red music stand here as well, so he'll make a decision when he gets hold of it and decide what's best colour for it. Or if you'd like the piano to be darker, then that's a possibility, as I say. As we got the piano pulled out, look at the back, because this is the X style that all Grotrians of this age have. Yamaha copied this for a while and then went away from it, but it does produce an extremely stable piano. Really, they've done all they can to make the very best piano you could possibly get for an upright piano. Just look at the shape of the sides of it as well, and we'll look inside the bottom and you'll see how that coincides. By the way, you can see a slight line on there's nothing to worry about that. It's not actually opened up. It's just that these are planks of wood basically put together, spruce, and so they always end up with a line like that, and it's nothing to be concerned. Quite dusty. Looking inside the bottom of the piano, you see the curved shape of the soundboard, and we'll see just how well, I don't want to use too many superlatives, I've done so before, but they're just incredibly well made, and just as well made a piano as you could possibly get. That's encouraging to see that they've used the system of stringing that allows you to replace strings. We've looked at that before in other videos, and some German firms don't do that, and they've also got English eyes as opposed to German eyes. Again, we've got that on other videos to see the contrast. And there's nothing to do on this at all. It's all in perfect condition. Obviously dirty, but you wouldn't need to replace anything. Now looking at the inside of the piano, for the condition, and generally extremely good. Just for zeroing on the tapes, because they often need replacing, but these tapes are so well made originally. If you take them off and put them back on, which you'd have to do if you're going to lubricate, well, they doesn't need much lubrication. Someone's done some in the past. You can see the strayed lubricant on the side of that, a little bit of lubricant down the side there. That's basically pencil lead in solution that's used for that, and graphite we call it. So if that needs redoing, then you probably, if you take the tape off and put it back on, you can try and make the tapes bland with hand cream or something like that, and then you can take them off. But I don't think we need to on this one. If they do break, if one breaks, it does look a bit of an eyesore. 1926, the date put on there, that's very kind, and very good numbering on the keys. And here, there's really tight keys. They're just so well made originally, so it stayed in very good condition. But one peculiarity, as you'll see here, is that this has been wedged in. And the reason for that is to try and get someone's done it in the past. Maybe the client said, can you make the light action a bit lighter? And that's a way of doing it, just making the hammers travel less far, and it'll feel lighter, but you won't get so much power out of it either. So that, if you take that out, you'll find that the hammers are not resting on the rail anymore. We need to readjust the capstans down here. In fact, it doesn't have capstans, which is a shame. But the only thing I could say that wasn't good about this piano. It would be much nicer if it had capstans, but maybe Grotrian felt it was better, and in some ways it is better to have a felt there and not a capstan. So that's their choice. So we do have to adjust the screws underneath this felt downwards, so that the hammers come back to the rail, and then that will be like it should be. Hammer blow 47, I've measured this, so it's 47 should be. It's been taken to about 40 millimeters, which is giving it a lighter feel. So if you take that out, as you can see, they're not regulated properly now. Now that is something we would normally do, but it will make the piano feel slightly heavier, not very significantly. We could do that, and then if the client who wants this done could try it out, and then if they found it was too heavy, we could just put it back in, put the wedge back in. It's not something we do normally, but certainly is a way of making a piano feel lighter. Tuning pins are very tight. It's actually 2 or 3 beats flat, but we won't break any strings along the way, I'm sure about that. If it's been regularly tuned, that won't be a problem. If it hadn't been tuned for a long time, we'd probably lubricate along here and take everything down and back up. But this has obviously been tuned reasonably regularly. The hammer wear, the other thing to look at, well, there is a reasonable amount, but certainly wouldn't change these. They're such high quality hammers. There's plenty of, they're quite hard still here, which is one thing we always look at. So we're going to be able to use those hammers, not have to replace them, which is good news. You don't replace Grotrian hammers unless you're sure about it, because they're so good in the first place, and chances are you're going to lose something of what the original manufacturer specification was. Listening to the bass first of all, and the lushness of this, when you tune it you really can hear it. How about that for a break point? Excellent. And the way those merge in as well, they really have thought of everything. You've got a fly damper on here to cut off the high harmonics. If you get a slight one there and no high harmonic there, you could have extra fly dampers, but they're extremely hard to fit. But I don't think in normal playing you notice it, and the damping is good generally. Let's have a look at the adjustments on the dampers, and that also is quite good, very good in fact. Perhaps slightly early. Again, that would affect the touch. If you take them a bit later, it'll make it feel slightly lighter. So that's something to consider. Whether we would do that, it depends on whether you want a lighter touch really, because they're moving not quite halfway. Halfway would be the norm, or past halfway for sometimes. And the warmth of tone. And singing mid-treble. Perfect break point. You can't fault these pianos, they're always so consistent, these Grotrians. It's a bit weak there, and that's to do with the hammers needing refacing ideally. but very carefully refacing. And we've said before, you must make sure that when you reface, they still hit all three strings at the same time. Otherwise, you're better off not refacing. It'll change the tone. It'll make it slightly brighter. So if you want a brighter tone, if you like it like it is, but it does mean when you play quietly, it does sound it doesn't quite sound as it should do. So refacing carefully will be the ideal thing to do there. Let's have a look at a couple more dampers, and they're coming off almost exactly together. So have a look at them with the pedal and see what happens. And again, they're coming off almost perfectly. So the piano's been used a reasonable amount looking at the hammers, but everything is working perfectly. The pedal could do with lifting them off slightly more. There's a very slight noise on the pedal as well. So those sorts of things can be taken into account. But really, this is the one factor we need to think about. Are we going to increase to take it to 47 millimeters, which it would normally have been, or we're going to leave it at 40? And you can see they're not even anyway, so work to do there. And keys then, the other work that needs doing mechanically, and then just checking the piano generally, but right through. You don't get a better upright than this. So that's an assessment of a Grotrian Steinweg 1926, 130 centimeters high. The piano is, I'm going to go on superlatives again if I'm not careful, but the piano is just as good as you'll get at any upright piano. Mellow sounding, and made mellow because the hammers are also worn, and if you want it less mellow, it can be refaced. I think it needs refacing round here, because without doing that, when you play particularly softly, it doesn't give the clarity it should do. But I would reface very carefully rather than take all the grooves out, because that will really change the tone, unless you want it to be brighter. They're quite loud pianos, so if you do go too bright and it's a small room, then you've got problems really. And it's really well in tune, but it's about 2 beats flat. Now the casework needs doing. The key tops, we're going to have to try and improve them, change this one, and this one needs replacing anyway. So that's another work to do. But on the action, there was a strange thing that we discovered inside, that someone's reduced the hammer blow, and that may well be to make it play lighter. So again, if we put it back to a 47 millimeters, you'll find that it will play slightly heavier. It won't be incredibly different. And then there's sort of some regulation to do, but basically the piano stood up so well to the test of time because it's so well made in the first place. Thank you very much for listening.